So in this video, we're going to look at request attributes, and we're going to see how request attributes can be used to pass information between servlets in our Java code and even onto JSP pages in the future. We're also going to look at how the request attributes differ from the form parameters that we were using before by doing some similar operations just to see the two things side by side and how they can be different. The code that I'm using for this is contained in the City Manager Web Attributes.mp4 file. It's one of the resources available to you. So you can pull that up and look through the code and see that in action, or you can start where we left off last time and just add the code as we go during this video. So the things that are going to be different are we're going to have one more HTML file called index2.html, which will just be a new start position that will allow us to post to a different place and keep our other code intact. What you can see is our post action for the HTML index2 file is going to be the main menu responder2.do servlet versus main menu responder.do. The rest of the code is exactly the same as what was in the index. There's nothing different. And then the main menu responder2 is going to be our servlet that's going to be the main handler, and then we'll have a responder helper, which main menu responder2 will actually request dispatch to, and we'll be able to see that we can use these parameters as attributes as well. So let's expand the code a little bit here, and let's look at main menu responder2 first. So of course we're going to be in our post just like we were before, and it is our main menu responder2.do is our path just like we expect. So just like before, we're going to read in from the parameter the user's choice. So that's going to be passed through the form just like before. But this time, instead of using that to forward on or make decisions, all we're going to do is set that into an attribute by hitting the request.setAttribute method. And this takes in a string to name the attribute and then the variable value. So this will be our user choice that we just read in. So this is just going to be a simple string. And then just like before, we'll read in the user options into an array. And we'll look through that and then request.setAttribute on each one of those if they exist. Now here's the thing to note. For right now, for ease of use and simplicity, everything is being set to strings. But the nice thing about attributes is that they don't have to be strings. So later when we start doing MVC programming and we start getting into working with JSP pages that can actually translate these attributes, the HTML files won't be able to do that. So the JSP will have an advantage there as well. When we get to that point, we'll maybe want to send a full model for the entire city, for instance, and we'll put that right into the attribute and be able to pass the entire value. So that makes them a little more powerful than just a form parameter, which has to be a string in the query string. But the other advantage that we're also going to get is when you pass all your information in the query string, a savvy web user could easily go in and start changing those values. It's just a string that they're basically sending the request to. A really savvy web user or malicious web user might go in there and try to change some of those values and see how that would affect the system. So there are times when you want to obscure some of that data, and by using these attributes, we can actually avoid having to put this information into the query string. So it just gives us a way to hide some of the information, at least from the user's direct interaction. And so with that, we can see that we can set our attributes. And again, here we're just going to use strings, but we could pass a full model. And then we're just going to dispatch on to the main menu responder helper.do servlet. And again, since HTML isn't able to translate these attributes, and we don't know how to do the JSP at this point, let's just go into the servlet and we'll just spit out some HTML and show that we have our information that we expected. You'll note then that there's no query string parameters being passed around. Everything's going to be handled from this point forward as the attribute. So with that, we'll forward it on to the main menu responder, and when we get there, we'll simply just read in from the request.get attribute, and we'll be able to get those attributes just like we were before when they were parameters. Now they're attributes. We can just read them, except for here, you'll note they come in as objects. And again, that's because parameters have to be strings, but attributes can be any object. So they come in as objects, so we need to cast them back, which is again another reason why I just quickly do them as strings. It makes them very easy to work with. Of course, you could have used integers or other easy to work with objects as well. And later we'll see some models being passed around this way. So again, we're just going to print out some information here. So if the choice is 1, we're going to list. And if it was 2, we were going to add. We're not actually going to navigate there. We're just going to show them that we understand that's what they wanted to do at this point. We're going to check and see if their option to email was checked. If so, set it to true. Otherwise, we'll set it to false. Same thing with option DB. We'll just create a quick string for the message. We'll print that out to the page. So nothing really spectacular or difficult here, but it shows that we're able to get the information that the user selected, pass it around, and not have to show that information right directly in the query string. So let's go ahead and run index2. So we just select that and hit the play button and restart our server if it's running. Otherwise, start the server up as it goes. And again, here we're on index 2, so you can see that. If you want to view the source, you could right-click and say View Source. It's a good way to check. You can then see you're actually going to post to the servlet that you're expecting it to post to. And here we can opt in. Let's just opt in to send the confirmation, and let's choose Add a New City. And again, you can see here, we passed forward all the way into main menu responder2.do. There are no query string parameters shown to the user, but you can see that you chose to show the page to add a city, set useDB to false, and send email to true. So it was able to maintain the information that we were looking to do. You can see that each time we make changes, those changes are reflected. Our information is being correctly passed around, and everything is working as we expect it to.